reason that cannabis can is because its primary mechanism of action is interacting with our endocannabinoid system. So this is a physiologic system that we all have in our bodies that's always working from the time before we were born to our very last breath. Our endocannabinoid system is functioning to restore and maintain balance at a cellular level. And this is why when something's wrong in the gut, endocannabinoids are released in order to restore balance. When something's wrong in the brain, same process happens. And if you look at all the various tissues of the body, they all have their endocannabinoid system that's hard at work, always keeping things in balance. So this is why you take this plant that is very, especially THC, acts very similarly to our endocannabinoids, and we introduce it, it can augment that system, make it function and perform even better in its major role to restore balance. So that's why we can have so many different things respond to cannabis. But that's not the only mechanism of action of this plant. For example, there's a lot of antimicrobial properties, right? The plant produces these cannabinoids and terpenoid compounds to protect the female flowering reproductive structures from pests, from mold, from bacteria, from ultraviolet light. So we have these antifungal properties, antibacterial properties, antioxidant properties, and also a lot of anti-inflammatory properties that are distinct from our endocannabinoid system. This isn't just a single molecule, and that's why it's so different than a lot of what we're used to in medicine. We have one molecule, one mechanism of action. That's what's kind of required to get through the FDA drug approval process. Here we have the exact opposite, something that would be considered a dirty drug, meaning it hits so many different targets in the body. It's doing lots of things all at once, and it's got many, many applications in various realms of medicine. Mostly the dirty drug is not appreciated in medicine because it tends to be dangerous. We use it for one thing and it creates all these side effects with its other mechanisms of action. But that's not the case with cannabis. What we're almost always seeing are side benefits. We try to do one thing with cannabis, like help with someone's pain, and suddenly we're helping with their mood, and we're helping with their sleep, and we're helping with their digestion. And that's the beauty of this medicine. So lots of mechanisms of action. I suspect that we actually just know the tip of the iceberg about how cannabis is working in the body. I think there's a lot more to discover. And there's parts of the plants that aren't being used very commonly. For example, the roots, the acidic cannabinoids, which are starting to become used a little bit more, but there's a lot of potential there. So this plant still has more to offer us. The sacred plant typically treats the cause and the symptoms of anyone's problem, not in every situation, but usually we start with the symptoms because a lot of people that come here are kind of desperate. They've tried a lot of things before they finally reach the courage or acceptance that cannabis may be an option for them. And so number one is to get them feeling better and improve their quality of life. And that's really always the goal in medicine, at least in the type of medicine I practice, is to improve function and quality in someone's life. That's the primary goal. And cannabis does that so readily for so many people. It's not perfect. Some people don't respond well to it, but the vast majority of the patients I see, that's easy to achieve, is symptom relief, improvement in quality and function in life. And then the question is, what's happening to their underlying condition? Well, so often through other mechanisms of action, and sometimes even the same mechanisms, we're having an improvement in their inner physiologic state, like a reduction in inflammation or an improvement in the function of certain organs or tissues, also caused by the cannabis. And so we see people with this kind of short-term benefit, and then over time we see a trend of decreased symptoms that they actually need to treat with cannabis. And so what I see all the time in my patients who have been here for 2 or 5 or 8 years using cannabis under my supervision, they're using less and less over time typically. They're making healthier choices in their life. They're getting in touch more with what they need to do from a lifestyle perspective and from a way of relating to their inner self and relating to their family and their community. They're making those shifts. I think some of that is certainly augmented by the cannabis state of consciousness, which helps people disengage and see things from a new perspective. And they're getting healthier. there's too many factors involved to attribute all of their improvement to the cannabis, but I'm sure in so many cases that the cannabis is the tipping point that enables them to no longer be buried by their symptoms and by their suffering and their disability, and to actually get out of bed, to get back into the community, to be able to focus enough to learn some new things that could help them, to engage with their families and the people around them, and especially to get back to meaningful work. Now, this is something that I didn't see when I was in my training in family medicine. Very many people that were on disability actually going back to work after starting some type of a medical treatment. Very unusual in medicine. We see this a lot. People actually, they're sick of being disabled, right? They want to get back on their feet and get back to work for financial incentives and for other incentives. And what I've observed is that there is almost no more powerful of a medicine than meaningful work in someone's life. We think the sacred plant is great. It is great. Love is also a good medicine. Connection with people, that's great. But meaningful work can take someone and make everything about their life better. And so it's such a critical milestone when people get better enough to go do something, even if it's just volunteering for a few hours a week, or helping out their neighbor, or maybe it's going back to a full-time job. But this is huge for people. I see that cannabis supports this. They can continue using cannabis while they're working. It doesn't have to be impairing. It can actually enhance their performance, enhance their focus when they use it in the right way. So people that don't have experience with cannabis, I have some basic suggestions for them. One would be to find a cannabis product that's reliable. This is easier said than done. And when I say product, I think for people brand new to cannabis, the best way to start it would be with a liquid medicine. So these are drops or sprays, typically a tincture or an oil that can be applied to the mouth. It gets absorbed to some extent through the blood vessels in the mouth and then swallowed.